All right, man, peace. So, brothers, when we last left off, Max Kellerman was frustrating Stephen A. Smith and Jay Williams with his assertion that Kawhi Leonard is a better pressure performer than Kobe Bean Bryant in the most pressurized moments. And they were incredulous because they are adherents to the cult of personality that revolves around Kobe Bean Bryant as opposed to the reality. A very long time ago, I made a video where I asserted, based on empirical data and not through any data that I myself have compiled, but who ESPN and other high-level bastions of analytics have compiled, where they made the assessment and they stated that Kobe Bryant is not a top 20 all-time playoff performer. I've always said that Kobe is a great player, but he's nowhere near as great as he is ranked. He just isn't. Well, Max Kellerman decided that he's going to double down and provide actual, real proof, statistical proof to show that Kawhi Leonard is a better clutch performer than Kobe Bryant. And I've already stated that really what Max Kellerman is saying is that to the eye, to those of us who are fact-based individuals, people of substance, as opposed to people of pomp and style, we know that Kawhi Leonard is the better, more well-rounded player at this point in his career than Kobe Bryant was at the same point in his career. But it's very difficult for people to accept that because right now, Kobe Bryant is no longer an active player. He's retired, and he has entered into Valhalla, even though he's not in the NBA Hall of Fame. That's not even a process that needs to occur. Kobe Bryant is considered to be a player of the ilk of Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Michael Jordan, etc. All of those players accept Kobe Bryant into their ranks. I myself do not think that Kobe Bryant is a top 10 player. I would put him top 15. But those players accept Kobe because they see him as someone who's of a kindred spirit. Well, once again, Max Kellerman has decided that he's going to double down on his argument pertaining to Mr. Kawhi Leonard. Stephen A. Smith is going to get even more frustrated because now Will Kane is joining in. So they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Yes, Kawhi is better than Kobe was. There has been no evidence, none whatsoever, to compare him to Kobe in terms of being a clutch player. Kawhi.
No, there's plenty of evidence. You just choose not to adhere to it. You choose not to acknowledge it because it's going against the sentiment. It's going against your emotions. As I stated in the previous video, what we're seeing or what we saw was an analytics expert, Max Kellerman, going against a fanboy in Stephen A. Smith. And sometimes the eye test adherents are victorious. Sometimes the analytics experts are victorious. Both parties will be victorious over a fanboy, and that's what Stephen A. Smith is. He's not really an eye test expert. He tries to act like he is, but he's really just a fanboy.
Kawhi Leonard, under pressure, ain't missing. I am done with you. He's in the conversation for greatest defensive player who ever lived. This sounds like...
I'm not quite sure if I agree with that. I would say that Kawhi is in the conversation for the greatest defensive player at his position. He's right there with Scottie Pippen.
Sounds like a case of recency bias. Well, okay. Kawhi is a better clutch performer than Kobe Bryant.
Agreed. How they gonna have Kawhi doing that laugh when Max Kellerman says that he's a better clutch performer than Kobe?
A great bad shot maker will leave you with iconic moments.
Let me rewind that back.
Moments. I is a better clutch performer than Kobe Bryant. A great bad shot maker will leave you with iconic moments in spite of the fact that consistently his team can get worse when he's on the floor late in games. I need to be paid double listening to you talk basketball. I'm not going to do it. You're right. We can't help you, man. We can't help you. I can't talk about that. We can't help. I can't talk about that. We really can't. I can't talk about that.
All Jay Williams was saying by walking off the set is that he had nothing to respond to Max Kellerman with.
Nice little montage. Welcome to my life, America. Those voices are in my head. Hi, Will Kane.
Hey.
I'm sure that there are a lot of voices in your head.
Hey.
How you doing?
Yeah.
You're a modern-day liberal woman. I'm sure that there are a lot of voices in your head.
Yeah. Real quick, by the way, that editing, I never said Kawhi was better than Kobe. I said under pressure.
Oh,
Kawhi
the editing was bad
Kobe.
editing?
Well, I'll say it for you. Right now, as an all-around player, Kawhi Leonard is a more well-rounded all-around player than Kobe Bryant was even at his peak. A lot of people are going to disagree with that. That is okay. When we look at defensive fundamentals and offensive fundamentals, Kawhi Leonard is a better and more well-rounded player than Kobe Bryant was. Once again, I know that a lot of people are going to flip their lid. It's okay.
under
took part
Molly.
of it. I'm saying they just took part of it.
They took part of it.
Okay.
That's it.
Listen,
Now, what Kawhi Leonard has to do is have another 10 seasons overall, like the season that he had this year. If he can do that, then it will substantiate the assertion that he can be considered a better player than Kobe. Right now, the sample size is just too small. But from what I've seen from Kawhi this season, going back to the 2016-2017 season, and his ability to play both offense and defense and transition between the two, as well as fit into any system, he's a more well-rounded player than even Kobe Bean was. Kobe Bean needed a high-level MK handler / low-level programmer in Phil Jackson to bring out the most in him. Any other coach could not bring out much in him.
it's happened to me in interviews. They take what?
And when I say much, I'm talking about offensive output that was proficient, efficient, and that could affect the team in a beneficial way.
Why is Will? Why are you here? You wanted to be a part of this Kawhi Kobe discussion?
Yeah, let me just explain to you something, because
I'm just asking.
I know, and I'm answering. Okay, let me just explain to you how First Take works. Okay, it's not like there's this big room and we're all standing around and anybody can walk in at any moment. So every time you act like why is Will here, everybody ought to know the answer to that question is because Stephen A. Smith invited me to be here.
Even Stephen A. had to smile at that one because basically the jig is up. Stephen A. likes to put on this big act as if he does not know why certain guests are appearing, when in reality, before the show, he begs them to come onto the show.
Well,
got the invitation in the mail.
He's got me there, except today, because this Kawhi Leonard discussion, actually I'm happy you're here because I'm annoyed at even having to revisit it, that I'm glad you're here, Will.
Okay, you may not be so glad in a few minutes.
Whatever.
Let me do this. It'll take 1 second, just so people know, in case they're just joining us, didn't see yesterday's show. So Max set off social media with his take on Kawhi Leonard being a better player under pressure, that's the part that you were saying was edited out, than Kobe Bryant. Mr. Kellerman was the 4th highest trending term on Twitter in the United States.
That's all?
Yeah.
He was the 4th highest trending person on Twitter over this Kobe Bryant shit. Once again, Kobe Bryant has the most fervent cult of personality of any basketball player other than Allen Iverson. When I say the most fervent, I'm talking about inordinately fervent. Like the Allen Iverson fan base will try to act as if he's the patron saint of all loser-ass wannabe thug Negroes from the late 90s into the early 2000s. The Kobe Bryant fan base will act as if Kobe Bryant is the greatest player to ever play. That's how bugged out and delusional they are.
Max?
Yeah.
I'm happy about that.
An unedited version. Defend yourself against the haters.
Yeah, this is really easy.
I agree. It is really easy. And what I think Max Kellerman really wants to say is that Kawhi Leonard is a better overall player than Kobe Bryant, but he knows that he can't say that yet. So he has to introduce this argument about Kawhi being a better pressure player. He knows that the stats are going to speak for him because Kobe Bryant missed the vast majority of his crunch time shots. It's just that nobody wants to accept this fact.
Kobe, first I'm going to tell you why you think it's Kobe, mistakenly. Because Kobe was maybe the best bad shot maker of all time.
In addition to that, Kobe Bryant fed off of the energy from the Michael Jordan era. And he carried that for a long time. I stated that in the previous video. That's one of the reasons why people believe that Kobe Bryant is this unbelievable clutch player, because they are conflating the Michael Jordan era with the Kobe Bryant era. And they're giving Kobe Bryant a lot of credit for things that Michael Jordan did, because Kobe does the best imitation of Michael Jordan of any player to ever play. I stated in the previous video it's very similar to the effect that Sugar Ray Leonard had on the boxing world after Muhammad Ali left the scene.
And he had no fear of the big moment. In fact, he relished the big moment. So what you remember...
He didn't just relish it, he sought it out. He was always looking for it. That's why it was so predictable what he was going to do with 2 or 3 seconds left. Everybody knew that he was going to take the shot, even if he was guarded by 2 or 3 guys. That's why his shooting percentage was so low, because he was a terrible decision maker on the basketball court. Kobe was a more talented, a taller version of Russell Westbrook. That's really what he was. He was a more talented, slightly taller version of Russell Westbrook who could shoot a bit better. Not much better, but a bit better.
Remember, is Kobe making impossible shots under pressure.
And also, he would get the hottest of any player that I've ever seen. That's one thing that I will give him. When he got hot, he got the hottest of any player that I've ever seen. But for the most part, he was a 10 for 24 guy from the field. And you would mix that in with some of his games where he would get unbelievably hot. So he'd end the season shooting anywhere between 44 to 46.5%.
That's not what Kawhi does. So Kawhi doesn't leave you with the same impression. Kawhi Leonard simply finds himself higher percentage shots that are easier to hit.
Because his basketball IQ is so high. That's why I state that I lean him more towards Jordan than Kobe, even though he's in their archetype.
So if Kobe Bryant, you consistently see, takes a shot where it's like 10% likely that another player would hit it, but he hits it 30% of the time, you're like, oh my God, that's 3 times as good as he ought to be. Kawhi Leonard finds himself a 45% shot, hits it 50% of the time. You're like, okay, that's a little better than what another guy would do. But he's hitting half his shots instead of a third of his shots when you need him the most. So that makes him better under pressure. Neither guy cares about, neither guy is scared. In fact, Kawhi comes off like a guy who...
Very interesting. Go ahead, game time field goals under 1 minute in the fourth quarter or overtime through 97 career playoff games. Kobe is 3 for 16. Kawhi is 3 for 9. Interesting.
I just doesn't care if there's pressure or not. He's going to kill you. And Kobe comes off.
But don't let that stop you from the Kobe fans saying Kobe's greater because he had better footwork. Kobe fans always try to act like they're basketball coaches or something like that, like they're skills coaches. I love Kobe's handle and his footwork. That's what makes him the greatest ever.
Comes off as a guy like, I want the pressure. I want to show you what I can do under the pressure. But I want to show you this. Through the same number of games in the playoffs in their careers, apples to apples. I don't want to compare Kawhi's whole career, which is not as long as Kobe's. Apples to apples. Let's look at it. Go ahead, game time field goals under 1 minute in the fourth quarter or overtime. Who has a higher percentage? Kawhi Leonard. Because he's better at basketball than Kobe Bryant? Well, he's better at finding himself high percentage shots than Kobe Bryant. Don't we have another screen coming up here somewhere?
Because that's what better players do. Better players try to find the easier shot. And as I always quote, you can tell a tree by its fruit. In the same way that Kobe Bryant was someone who sought after any and every type of shot and had very little discretion in the type of baskets that he would attempt to make, his fans are the same way. They look past the bad decision and they lean towards the glory. So he's created and crafted a cult of personality for himself that reflects who he is. Kawhi Leonard is more subdued. He looks for the most astute route. He looks for the most linear route to scoring the basket. That's why I say he's much more like Jordan. That's why Jordan ended his career, despite his last 2 years with the Wizards, he's still basically a 50% shooter for his career because he was trained on being as efficient and as proficient as possible.
We'll get it for you. There we go.
There it is. Through 97 career playoff games. Let's take a look.
Through 97 career playoff games, Kobe averages about 4 points more, which you'd expect because he takes way more shots. His rebounds per game is down about 2.5. His assists per game, double Kawhi's because he has a different role. We know that Kawhi played with Tony Parker, so that's totally different. Plus, Kobe played in the triangle. So in the triangle, the point guard does not dominate the basketball. His effective field goal percentage is 12 percentage points lower. Of course, he has 3 more titles he has 3 titles as opposed to 1 for Kawhi because Kobe played with Shaq. And he had no finals MVPs.
Kobe's averaging more points because he gets more touches.
Yep.
Kawhi's is averaging more rebounds. Kobe's averaging more assists, but they're all within range. But look at the effective field goal percentage. That means you're taking into account 3-point shots, free throws, the whole thing. Kawhi
and shot selection.
Kawhi is much better. He's finding himself higher percentage shots. Now, the titles put Kawhi with a prime Shaq. He'd have had 3 at the same age, too.
Absolutely. If you could have paired Kawhi Leonard and really a bevy of players with Shaquille O'Neal back in that era of the early 2000s, if Vince Carter, if Tracy McGrady, if those type of players had been paired with Shaq and had Phil Jackson as the coach, they all would have won 3 titles.
How about the Finals MVP? That's 1-0. Kawhi, they're both great pressure players, but Kawhi is better because when he's on the floor in those circumstances, he raises his team's expectancy to win, if you look at it, really.
And raises their basketball acumen as well.
More than Kobe does, because he finds himself better shots.
And also because Kawhi allowed himself to be coached by Popovich. That's what assisted him in understanding the game to a far greater degree.
And the numbers prove it.
Go ahead, Will.
No. I don't want you. Honestly, I want to hear your argument. Because I'm going to tell you something, all right? I have no inclination, no instinct to side with Max Kellerman on anything. Give me a blank.
I love seeing these two white dudes go back and forth with each other.
Give me a blank slate and tell me Max is over here and the rest of the world is over there, and I'm probably going to be with the rest of the world. I'm going to be honest with you, Stephen A. I didn't hear one argument from you yesterday.
Because he didn't have one, Will Kane. He didn't have one. The only argument, quote unquote, that Stephen A. Smith and Jay Williams had is you should believe us because we know so much about basketball. When really all they were saying in coded language is that I'm a fanboy of Kobe Bryant. That's all they were saying. And Stephen A. was saying, I have to stick up for Kobe because Kobe was one of the few players who would come on my show back in the day in the early 2000s. He also was the person who would call me up and provide me with information pertaining to what was going on in the Laker hierarchy back in the late 2000s, early 2010s.
I listened. I didn't hear one argument for you or Jay. Jay got up and walked out. You said you don't know basketball. I'm going to be dead honest with you. I don't know what your argument is yet, short of saying the words Kobe Bryant.
He said he don't know what Stephen A.'s argument is other than saying the name Kobe Bryant. That's all his argument is. Because remember, Kobe Bryant is a magician. He practices black magic. He tells you that himself overtly. That's why I've done 2 videos so far about him being a pupil of Lucifer. And there's another one coming because this dude is out of the closet with it. He has no problem letting you know that he courts magical energies and mysticism, so on and so forth, to put people under a spell. And that to me explains why you have so many people ready to die for this dude, when it's very clear that yes, he was a great basketball player, but a lot of his numbers are cumulative. He played 20 years in the NBA. So it's difficult to compare a player who's been in the NBA for 20 years and been basically in the limelight of the NBA from 1997 all the way to 2016. Then you have a player like a Kawhi Leonard who just right now is coming into his own. I understand what Max Kellerman is trying to say. I just don't agree with the overall argument because there's not enough data in the file yet. But from what I've seen, Kawhi Leonard is a more proficient and efficient player than Kobe Bryant with a far higher basketball IQ. That's why it always makes me laugh to see Kobe sit back and act like he's some professor of basketball. He knows so much about basketball where everybody's supposed to be on the floor and all this other shit. And when he played, he disregarded all that and would go 1-on-3.
Max, I'm going to say this. I'll sit back, Stephen A., because I truly want to hear. Max has made one hell of an argument, and I don't care.
I agree.
I don't care if the entire internet
From
is
Will
against him.
From Will Kane, this means so much to me.
Cool.
This means so much to me about the sport of basketball. I'm so touched.
But
you're right. You're right.
This is
That's
the same
fair.
thing of the
That's
defense.
fair.
The
That's
entire
fair.
internet defense doesn't exist. You know what? To hell with it.
Well, most of the analysts on TV, the pundits on television, try to act as if defense doesn't exist or that it doesn't matter. They'll claim that they factor that into the equation, but they really don't. Whoever the offensive player of the year is in the NBA normally also is going to be the recipient of the MVP award. Michael Jordan won the MVP award in 1988, not because he was the defensive player of the year, and he was the first player up to that time, at least on record, to have over 200 steals and 100 blocks in a season, and he had done it for the second straight year. He didn't win the MVP because of that. He won the MVP because of what he did on the offensive end. So, Rachel Nichols is the first person that I've heard postulate the idea that they should have an Offensive Player of the Year award. And I said at the time the reason why she was saying that is because she wanted James Harden to get the Offensive Player of the Year so that her boo thing LeBron could get the MVP. But really, they should have an Offensive Player of the Year award so that when we discuss the MVP of the NBA, we can appropriately factor in both offense and defense.
With the internet, make an argument.
Well, first of all, I don't need the internet to make an argument. I make an argument.
So then make one, Negro. Just make an argument and cease from all the bullshit.
An argument 240 days out of the year. I don't have a damn thing to prove when it comes to basketball. That's number one.
No, brother, actually you do. Because the way that you speak, you try to convince the viewers that you played in the league and you didn't.
Let's hear it.
Number two, and more, because the reason why it's hard for me, Will, is because I don't like entertaining the subject. Because
it hurts your feelings due to the fact that you're a fanboy.
I don't look at just the numbers. I look at what my eyes see. I look at the pressurized situations that Kawhi Leonard had been in, which is minimal. I look at what Kobe has been subjected to.
That's why the graph that Max Kellerman provided was through 97 games each. So it's an equivalent sample size. That's why he did that.
Yes, it's minimal. It's minimal because of who he was playing with for the vast part of the early part of his career. Remember,
97 playoff games.
Really? So I sat here and I listened. Hold on, time out. I sat here. Molly, did I say a word?
No.
Stephen A. Smith, all she's doing is providing context for you because, once again, you're comparing Kawhi Leonard and the small sample size that he has to Kobe Bryant's entire career. Well, Max Kellerman, to avert that, provided a graph provided a chart, showing both Kobe Bryant's and Kawhi Leonard's productivity in the clutch in an equivalent amount of games. So we can leave that argument to the side. You really have no argument.
Oh, did I say a word? Now, I'm gonna sit up there and I'm gonna say this to y'all. Kobe Bryant came into the league in 1996, 15 years before Kawhi Leonard came into the league. Look at the level of competition that he had to go against. Look at the rules that were existing in the game of basketball then compared to now.
Stephen A. Smith, spare me with the bullshit, please. That would be a better argument if you were talking about Tracy McGrady or Vince Carter or Allen Iverson or one of those type of players, Paul Pierce from the late 90s, early 2000s, who was playing hero ball and did not really have that much help. Kobe Bryant was the second best player on his team. He did not face double teams. Certain cats will try to change the narrative on that and claim that he did face a bunch of double teams. Shaquille O'Neal was getting double and triple teamed. Kobe Bryant was going one-on-one for the first 7 years of his career. Knock it off.
Look at to use your word, the premium moments or whatever word that you would use that Kobe was subjected to. Look at what Shaquille O'Neal left the game and what load Kobe Bryant had to carry.
You mean after Kobe Bryant ran him off? You're talking about that, right?
Look at all of those things, and then look at the early part of Kawhi Leonard's career. And then after they won the championship, and he obviously was stellar those last 3 games in the NBA Finals, particularly Game 3, when he dropped 23, and he was a stellar defender against LeBron James. Then what happens? He comes back, they go 67-15, 40-1 at home, and they get bounced out by OKC in the postseason. The next year he plays 9 games because...
Not true. The year after they got bounced out by OKC, they go on and they have a great regular season again. And they confront the Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference Finals, I believe it was, or semis. Either the semis or the Western Conference Finals. And Kawhi Leonard is dominating Kevin Durant and Steph Curry in Oracle. They're up by like 25 points, and then he lands on Zaza Pachulia's foot. That's what happened.
Because he's injured. And then after that, he's in Toronto. I'm saying to you that Kawhi Leonard is absolutely positively sensational. But the body of work that he's been subjected to and the conditions under which he has had to perform pale significantly in comparison to what Kobe has been subjected to. So it's not about looking...
So basically what you're saying, Stephen A. Smith, is that Kobe Bryant in his era playing alongside Shaq, because once again, we're only comparing the first 97 playoff games. So Kobe Bryant playing in the early part of his career with Shaq faced tougher competition in the playoffs than what Kawhi Leonard has faced with the San Antonio Spurs. So you're saying that there was a team that existed back during that Shaq-Kobe period that was as good as or better than the Golden State Warriors of today. That's what you're saying. Because you're the one trying to make this disparity in competition argument.
Looking at Kawhi Leonard's skill, talents, or even his numbers. It's about understanding the different times that we're living.
Look, I've said this already, and there's nothing against the early 2000s LA Lakers three-peat team. They faced the weakest competition in the finals of any dynastic team that I've ever seen. And they were very fortunate because they had the lowest overall basketball IQ of any dynastic team I've ever seen. Their basketball IQ was atrocious. And anytime they faced a team that had even a relatively high basketball IQ, they would get befuddled. And that is why Phil Jackson proactively tried to avoid facing the Utah Jazz in the playoffs in their first playoff run in 2000. And he'll tell you that himself, that he did not want his team to square up against the Utah Jazz, even though those guys at that point were 37 years old. John Stockton, Karl Malone, they were both 37, 38 years old. Phil Jackson was still trying to avoid them because he knew how stupid his team was. And to take it to another level, the only reason why the Lakers were able to defeat the Spurs for about 2 years in a row, maybe 3 years in a row, is because the Spurs backcourt was so poor. As soon as they brought Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili in, we saw what happened in 2003. The Lakers lost. That's why they tried to retool with Karl Malone and Gary Payton in the first place. The Lakers were a dumb team. Kobe Bryant was not a player with a high basketball IQ. He did not develop into a player with a relatively high basketball IQ until the late 2000s. And that's why I've always said that is the time period where he was truly a great all-around player, from 2007 to 2010. Other than that, he was a great and a magnificent basketball talent, but not a great player. Kawhi Leonard right now is a great player overall, basketball IQ on down. That's why he's always in the right place at the right time, and he always makes the right decision.
We're living in the different rules and regulations that purview over the game, that has dominion over the game, combined with the fact that there are a plethora of moments that he's never even been exposed to compared to what Kobe was exposed to.
Really? That's interesting. So Kawhi Leonard, a player who went to back-to-back finals in 2013 and 2014 and had other deep playoff runs with the San Antonio Spurs, and is in the midst of another deep playoff run led by him with the Toronto Raptors, has not gone through things that Kobe has gone through. Are you sure about that, sir?
To even draw that comparison. I'm not telling you what Kawhi Leonard won't end up doing.
He's talking about Kawhi like he's Giannis Antetokounmpo.
I'm not telling you he's not great. I'm not telling you he's not sensational. I'm telling you his resume, as of yet, significantly compels in comparison. It's the equivalent.
You have to compare his resume to Kobe's resume through about 2002, 2003. That's what the argument is, Stephen A. Smith. You do not even understand the argument.
Equivalent of somebody talking about boxing, and he just started last year and thinks he's Max Kellerman. He's not.
Max, can I really
quickly, because there's a body of work that's not there yet.
Now that I've heard you both, can I
That's
just
all I'm saying.
I think first of all, Max, and listen, man, you know I'm not a big defender of yours in any situation. You're getting taken completely out of context, and it's not fair. Everybody is saying you're saying Kawhi is better than Kobe. You're taking a very... No. Everybody that's coming in, I hear you, Stephen A., because I want to get to what you said. He's taking at this point through their careers.
Thank you, sir.
That's what Max is saying.
Under pressure.
97, and yeah, right. You're not making a generalized statement about the quality of the two players. 97 games, Stephen A. He's got. It's not just the numbers he's laid out. There's another one which is plus minus, and it favors Kawhi heavily in playoff games. It's plus 600 to plus 20.
That's interesting. As a matter of fact, that's past interesting.
Now, Stephen A., you make 1 point.
But once again, that should be expected because Kawhi Leonard plays a more winning brand of basketball than Kobe does. Kawhi does not play hero ball. He's so proficient that you cannot even classify what he plays as hero ball.
Point which I think is valid. The era is different.
And that's why I've also said Michael Jordan's impact on the league was the most positive ever, and also arguably one of the most negative ever, because he had so many copycats after him who tried to play his style of basketball. And Michael Jordan's style of basketball in the 90s was not hero ball. It was very much akin to what Kawhi Leonard does today, except, of course, it was about a level higher than what Kawhi is doing right now. Now, what Michael Jordan did in the 80s was hero ball, but even that was proficient hero ball because he was shooting 54%, 53% every season. Look at Michael Jordan's shooting percentages from 1987 to 1990. Every season, 53, 54, 52%. I mean, shooting percentages that guards would dream about today, especially guards averaging 25 plus, 30 plus points per game. Never seen before the proficiency numbers that Michael Jordan put up during that era. But just to get back to the point, Kobe Bryant and Kawhi Leonard, the disparity in efficiency and proficiency, it's stark. It's stark. And again, the sample size is too small for Kawhi right now. But if Kawhi has another 7-8 years similar to this or better than this, the conversation is going to be relevant pertaining to who is the best player, comparing prime for prime.
In Kobe's era, to be an offensive force against the defenses he had to face in his era is a good point to make. But I don't think it overcomes all the numbers Max is pointing out. Bottom line is, I think Max is being taken out of context and distorted, and he's made one hell of an argument with a lot of evidence to back him up.
He's not being distorted or taken out of context by me.
Yes, you are. You spent your entire attempt at an argument trying to compare Kobe Bryant's career to Kawhi's career. And that's why you're so upset. You don't seem to grasp that Max Kellerman is talking about the first 97 games for each player. And it's relatively commensurate. It's relatively commensurate because in the early part of Kobe's career, he played with Shaq. In the early part of Kawhi's career, he played with Tim Duncan. So don't try to act like Kawhi has had so much more help than Kobe had. It's nonsense.
Yeah, but you're doing the same thing. You took Kobe's total body of work.
Yep.
He's making just through this point.
No. I didn't take his whole body of work.
Yes, you did.
I'm saying the moments that he's been subjected to. I think that's incredibly important. And I will sit there and say this to you, Will Kane, when you want to talk basketball, who do you have as guest on your show? Don't you have...
Now he's trying to pull the basketball expert card because Stephen A. Smith really believes that he's a basketball expert.
Have those aficionados that you call onto the Will Kane show on ESPN Radio and defer to their knowledge, their experiences, because everything doesn't come associated with numbers. I'm only bringing that up to ask this question, albeit rhetorically. All right. Ask them about the moments Kobe has had to endure in his career compared to what Kawhi has, and what they would tell you is that
Stephen A. Smith acts like Kobe Bryant got into a car accident and was paralyzed from the waist down for 2 years and had to come back from some type of traumatic injury. What are you talking about? The moments that Kobe Bryant had to go through. He has not gone through any more trauma than Kawhi Leonard has gone through, if you want to even use that term, or just ups and downs, just a part of an NBA career.
That there is no comparison. It doesn't warrant it. Nobody's questioning the skills.
The best argument against Kawhi is that he blew those free throws in Game 6 of the 2013 Finals that cost him the game and thus cost him the series.
Skills or the greatness
wait,
of Kawhi.
Wait, Stephen, you're making a different argument. You're saying Kobe had to do it more often because clearly you can't say Kawhi was never in a big moment. He's been in a lot of big moments. But that Kobe had even more responsibility. In other words, he was in many more big moments even at the same point in their career.
The only time Kawhi Leonard was a number one option and was in those moments was the time that he got undercut by Jaja Pachulia.
Even if I were to grant you that, and I think that's actually debatable, but even if I were to grant you that, let's say I'm granting you that right now, because Kobe had to do it more often, Kawhi can't help that. What Kawhi can help is the way he responds when he's called on to do it. And I'm telling you, in those moments, his team has a better chance to win because of the way he's playing than Kobe's teams had because of the way he was playing.
We can give Will the last word since he's supposed to be judge or jury for some reason, and that's fine.
Yeah, you want to give him the last word because you're out of ammo and never had any ammo to begin with. Stephen A. came to this gunfight with one of them clown guns, and when they pull the trigger, a flower comes out. That's what Stephen A. packing right now.
That's fine. But Max Kellerman, here's what I'm going to say to you. Based on what...
As usual, whenever you have a Kobe Bryant fanboy who engages in a debate with someone who has actual facts and rationale, reason, and understanding, they lose. And not only do they lose, but they lose their composure.
What you said, I am going to go and I am going to find some amateur boxing analyst who's going to come on television and have a beautiful, beautiful moment. He's going to be eloquent in his delivery. He's going to spew expertise. He's going to do all of that, Max Kellerman. And because of that moment, I'm going to look at him and go like this. He's on the level of Max Kellerman.
Hold up.
What a pathetic analogy, or attempt at an analogy. And he's so desperate. He's trying to appeal to Max Kellerman's ego by creating an analogy where a quote-unquote so-called novice boxing expert were to outshine Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith were to equate him with Max Kellerman. That's a false equivalency, because once again, what Max Kellerman is doing is comparing Kawhi Leonard to Kobe Bryant with equal amount of games played in their career in the playoffs thus far. Stephen A. Smith still does not understand what the debate is about. He still doesn't get it. He's trying to act like he does because he's proud. But within his mind, he's still thinking about Kobe Bryant's 20-year career versus Kawhi Leonard.
Hold on. Not only is that a bad comparison, because you're acting like Kawhi has had crumbs in the playoffs. Kawhi's been a Finals MVP. You act like defense doesn't count under pressure. It does. Kawhi's an elite, maybe the best defender ever. He's in the argument. That's one. Two, Kawhi not only won Finals MVP, he was the number one scoring option, too, in that Finals for the Spurs.
He averaged 14 points in the Finals. He averaged 12 points that season.
Can I finish? But Kawhi Leonard also has had playoff series like against the Memphis team that was pretty loaded, that people in San Antonio are like, we got to keep our eye on this Memphis series. Kawhi had one of the greatest playoff series of anyone who ever lived.
They were a good team. Nobody was talking about Memphis as some champion.
Who was the MVP of the first three finals with the Lakers?
Whatever.
Who was the
Nobody
MVP?
was talking about that.
Who was the MVP of the first three finals with the Lakers?
The MVP was Shaq.
It was.
So then how much trauma did Kobe Bryant go through in the early portion of his career? You're trying to act as if he had to climb up from the very bottom. He was not even the best player on his own team the first 7 years. That's why he drove Shaq away in the first place.
It was Shaq, right? Kobe got his own team when he was older than Kawhi is now when he started doing the things you're giving credit for. Kawhi hasn't been there yet. You got to wait till Kawhi is the same age.
Agreed.
What about when Shaq fouled out against Indiana? What about when Shaq got into foul trouble in certain playoff series? And
I'm not arguing Kobe's not great.
What I'm saying to you is that you're bringing up those moments. You're ignoring the fact that Shaq needed Kobe to win those titles.
No doubt about it. And Tim Duncan also needed Kawhi Leonard to win that last title in 2014.
Penny Hardaway didn't do it for him.
No doubt. No one's arguing. I think Kobe's one of the 10 greatest players who ever lived. By the way, not everyone does. I think he is.
Thank you, sir. I'm one of them who knows that Kobe Bryant is not a top 10 all-time great player.
I think he's the second greatest shooting guard of all time next to Michael Jordan. It's not what we're arguing.
I'm happy of taking on the robe, the gavel. I'm happy to be judge and jury. Here's the thing. Stephen A., in the end, I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to take Kobe over Kawhi, even in these pressure situations. But I'll be honest, I just don't like your argument.
Because he doesn't have one. That's why you don't like his argument, Will Kane. He doesn't have one.
Best one is that he's had more opportunities, been put into the situation more, and carried more of a load. But Max, I gotta tell you something, and maybe this is worthless to everybody, but this is a debate show. You move the needle. I'm not talking about attention. I'm talking about persuasion. Your argument is better than somebody that yells at you that you don't know basketball. And Stephen A., while I might have people on my show that I defer to, I never go into it going, well, no matter what, they're going to be right.
Absolutely. Great point.
I listen to their arguments. I listen to what they have to say. And if the best they can muster up, if the best they can do is I use my eyeballs and you don't know basketball, I know I just won. Because you didn't make an argument.
He didn't make an argument because he doesn't have one. And he knows that he doesn't have one.
The hell with your argument.
Oh, that's your normal Kobe Bryant fanboy argument. You see, in the previous debate, Jay Williams walked off the set. In this one, Stephen A. Smith said, "To hell with your argument."
Let me be very clear. And the reason why, hold on, the reason I say that is because I don't feel the need to consistently
You should celebrate Max Kellerman because you won.
That's
repeat
easy cop-out.
Wait a minute, it's not a cop-out. It's I'm on the show 240 damn days out
I'm
of the year
listening
talking
right now
basketball.
to your argument.
Talking basketball. You just acknowledged what argument that I made in terms of the time.
One.
So in other words, I said that. That's the only argument that I made.
You made no argument, Stephen A. Smith. You lost. You lost. But I understand you're a fan. It's okay. I just think that if Kawhi keeps trending and stays on this same path for the next 7-8 years, let's say his prime comes to an end at 34, maybe 35 if he stays in great condition, and we have about an 8-year stretch of Kawhi averaging 27, 28 points per game on 49, 50% shooting from the field, great defense, maybe 2 or 3 more titles, maybe 2 regular season MVP awards, we can look back and say, let's compare his prime to Kobe Bryant's prime. Prime for prime, offensive efficiency numbers, defensive efficiency numbers. A lot of people are not going to like what we find. But anyway, peace.